I awoke from a deep slumber due to the loud sound of rain outside. I was used to it though. Hell, it's Seattle after all. Rain Central. I rubbed my eyes and happened to gaze out my curtainless window just at the moment when a cloaked figure appeared in the middle of the street. I rubbed my eyes again. I was sure I was seeing things. Still, I decided to get a closer look. I hopped out of my bed and peered through the window. Through the raindrops, I could barely make out a cloaked figure. It was just standing there, not moving at all. I turned away for a second to clean my glasses on my oversized Seattle Mariners jersey. But when I turned back, I didn't see anything. Unfortunately, the creepiness didn't stop there. There was a loud knocking on my front door. My parents weren't home since it was Saturday night and they usually went out to dinner and a movie. I walked to the front door and peered through the small peephole. I saw a cloaked figure, just like what I'd seen standing in the rain the night before. I was about to run back to my room when the figure spoke. "You do not belong here anymore. It is time for you to come home." The figure banged loudly on the door. "What do you want from me?" I shouted. "I need you to come home," the deep and low voice stated. "Go away, you creep!" I shouted, and ran back upstairs as fast as my legs could carry me. I quickly locked my door to my room and double-checked to make sure my bedroom window was locked. Then I hopped into bed and pulled the covers tightly over me. The morning light shone through the window. The rain had finally let up, and it proved to be a beautiful day outside. I walked downstairs to the kitchen and found my parents crying at a table. "Mom? Dad? What happened?" My cries went unanswered. I peered over my dad's shoulder and saw the headline of the article he was reading. It was about me. 16-year-old boy dies in accident due to rain. I stumbled backwards and hit something. I turned around and saw the cloaked figure. There was no face, just red, menacing eyes and pale white skin. "I tried to tell you that you needed to come home last night. You did not want to. It is far too late now," the voice said. Just then, a hole opened up below me, and I fell through. It's truly a living hell where I'm at now. It was 4:03 in the morning when I woke up screaming. It was my dream. In my dream, I watched everyone I ever knew or loved be killed by the creature. It had a short, fat body and long, slender arms, which ended with claws that looked more like swords than claws. Its eyes were slits that glowed red in the darkness, and its teeth were like long horns and sharp like steak knives. It looked at me before it killed them and laughed each time before it ripped apart my loved ones with its sharp claws. How had it found us? It tricked me into letting it into my home, I'm mimicking the voice of my father. It couldn't come in without permission. It told me after it ripped out my mother's heart. The dream ended with the creature laughing its evil cackle and slowly walking towards me. Dragging its claws on the floor, I screamed and sat up. I was in my room, in my bed, safe again. At 4:03, I hear a knock at the door and I froze up instantly. "Tommy, are you alright? I heard you screaming," I heard my mother say. What a relief. Mom's here. "I'm fine, Mom. Just a bad dream," I replied, the relief just washing over me. "Okay, honey. I got you a glass of water. Do you want it?" Mom sat back to me. "Sure, come in," I said. And as those words left my mouth, I remembered that it was September, and I had moved back into my college dorm 3 weeks ago. You know what would be just delightful? To maybe watch television, or sit around the house, or take a ride in the car without my father bringing up religion. Father is a master at turning any conversation into a lecture about faith. Anything he reads, sees, or hears in the media is a prompt for him to hold forth on spirituality. Good God, I've seen the man be inspired by weather patterns. Know that we are not alone, and that there exists a power greater than anything we can conceive on this earth, he says. Know that the courage of faith is a bravery surpassing that of the assembled armies on earth, he says. Faith will be tested, he says. Faith will be rewarded, he says, and says, and says, and says. Please, don't misunderstand. I am a believer. I have been brought up in the faith and I strive to adhere to it. However, I find it increasingly difficult to be a blind follower, for if we fear to ask questions of faith, is that not an admission of doubt, an acknowledgement that our faith, our rock, our shield, cannot withstand the slightest scrutiny? Father will have none of this, and our exchanges escalate into shouts and angry tears. Know that we have been blessed beyond measure, he says, a pointed finger trembling inches from my face. Never forget, boy. Still, my questions persist. Lately they grow in number. Forgive me, I don't mean to be so critical of my father. He is unshakable in his belief, and that can be inspiring. I think of my mother's recent passing. A man less devout might have abandoned his convictions, strayed from his path, but not my father. I'll also admit that, to those not ceaselessly subjected to his poutings, my father is quite charming. The impression he gives is not that of a wild-eyed zealot. He is patiently persuasive. He has a certain charisma. Several people in our town have come around to his way of thinking, and they include some of our more notable residents. Elected officials, captains of industry, members of law enforcement, good friends to have. I can see many of them now as my father and I enter the clearing in the woods behind our home. Some avert their eyes. They're new. Others offer a friendly wave and a warm smile. My father is at it again, telling me about the demands of faith and the comfort that awaits us after our earthly trials have ceased. A comfort no less than eternity. All this talk about religion goes a long way towards explaining why my sister is bound upon the altar. It doesn't make what I've been told to do any easier. It was 3 pa 4 kappa paper by pipa double papalupalia maco macaroni parapeti